The interest in the Las Vegas shooting is dwindling, but here's one more video, this time on the subject of the first shots. In this video, we'll first discuss the claim that the topmost shot into the fuel tank was impossible, then we'll introduce the supersonic crack problem, and, finally, we'll present some random bits and pieces. An often repeated claim is that the topmost shot at the fuel tank was impossible. According to this claim, the bullet could not clear the overhanging lip of the tank. This was recently illustrated in a video showing a physical recreation.
The rope is set to 20. That bullet path will not clear that lip.
This claim is closely linked to the question of the caliber of weapon used for the fuel tank shots. We'll try to answer this question. To figure it out, let's start in the most obvious place, the forensic marker left by the investigators near the bullet hole. Up close, we can see that it contains a photoscale, that is a pattern of black and white thin rectangles, used as a measurement reference in forensic photos. It's not very legible, but we can figure it out. Some of such references use inches, some centimeters, but either way, they follow certain rules. The base unit, either an inch or a centimeter, must be marked. Occasionally, smaller units can be included, such as half centimeters or quarter inches, but only in addition to the already marked base units. Since there are no subunits in the fuel tank photo, we know that the reference rectangles are either 1 centimeter or 1 inch long. Given that the bullet hole is only a bit smaller than one rectangle, the scale is unlikely to be in inches. We can confirm this. Note that each photo scale has the name of the basic unit near the 0 point, either cm for centimeter, or the word inch. In the photo, given the orientation of the label, the unit is not very legible. If we rotate the picture, it becomes clearer. We can't make out the second character, but we can see only 2 characters, and the first one is a C. This means we're dealing with centimeters. This lets us estimate that the caliber was probably .308, or NATO 7.62. Because we can correlate this to the dimensions of the angle iron lip, we can get an independent confirmation from a high-res photo of the fuel tanks. There, we can check the width of the lip against the known dimensions of the fuel tank. The results support the forensic reference label. Knowing the dimensions, we can now reconstruct the bullet path in 3D, in relation to Paddock's suite and the overhanging lip. We can verify that in fact the bullet would have cleared the lip. Given its proximity to the lip, it is indeed a somewhat unique impact point, but nothing about it is impossible. The closest distance between the bullet and the lip is about 0.8 inch. The angle of the bullet path is only about 8 degrees. Apparently, when judging the angle, most people intuitively underestimate the distance between the hotel and the tanks, and overestimate Paddock's elevation. Much more puzzling is the supersonic crack issue. It's often assumed that at least some of the initial single shots were aimed at the fuel tanks. The problem is, that given the size of the supersonic cylinder described in the past, shots fired at the fuel tanks wouldn't produce a supersonic crack in the festival area. As it is, all of the initial shots are accompanied by supersonic cracks somewhere in the festival area, though not necessarily in all recording locations at the same time. Let's compare the supersonic cracks in 3 high-quality recordings of the initial shots.
Yes, you heard I was put onto the metal on wheels. Yes, you heard I was put onto the metal on wheels.
One thing to notice, is that cracks drop off at the location furthest away from the shooter. This means that the bullet path was angled away from that location during these shots. But the key observation is that all shots produce a supersonic crack somewhere in the festival area. This suggests that none of them were aimed at the tanks, since, as mentioned before, shots aimed at the tanks wouldn't produce a supersonic crack over the festival grounds. We actually know that at least 2 of the initial shots were aimed at the audience. First, listen to this interview with a concert goer.
Everything started from me when I heard one single loud bang right behind me, and I was in the VIP suites. And I turn around and look, and I see that someone has fallen. And But I know that I saw a woman fall with the correlation of that first shot.
Being shot up here on the balcony, we can see people crouching down rather, to attend to a woman.
There's also a report of another video showing a person hit by the initial rounds, but only audio is played.
During these initial shots, there was a man who was shot and killed only feet away from witness 10. Let me just play a few seconds of the audio for you.
That person's dead.
So what are the possible explanations? Perhaps the fuel shots happened at a different time. The single shots we've looked at are near the end of the song Any Old Barstool. There may be single shots earlier than that, buried in the song or before it, with no cracks heard on the festival grounds. Or perhaps the tank shots happened later, when Paddock fired single rounds aimed at cops. Or as may be the case, during the final 2 rounds. Perhaps the fuel tanks were hit by the bump stock volleys. This is unlikely. Press reports say that the rounds that hit the fuel tanks were of the incendiary type, and no such rounds were reported in the festival area. One viewer proposed a theory, in which he suggests that the reason the supersonic cracks fade in and out in the festival area, is not because the cracks fade out sideways from the bullet path, but in front of the bullet impact. That is to say, he claims there is no cylinder around the bullet path, only a wide region that terminates at the end of the path. This could explain why we hear supersonic cracks from the fuel tank shots in the festival area, except this theory is wrong. Firstly, we can read the research papers from the developers of professional gun detection systems. This paper, by the company ShotSpotter, clearly specifies the supersonic range as 30 to 50 meters or 100 to 165 feet from the bullet path. Secondly, the theory that you cannot hear the supersonic crack in front of a bullet hit is false, as shown in this video. This video was taken from the top of the VIP lounge, on the opposite side from Mandalay Bay. From the timing, we know this is the first automatic round at the very beginning of the shooting. This means that the entire audience is still in front of us. The crowd is just beginning to flee, and there are no people on the street behind us. This means that the shooter is aiming at the area before us. Virtually all the shots we hear are accompanied by supersonic cracks, which means you can hear the supersonic cracks in front of bullet hits. In the previously cited interview, the concert goer asked an interesting question: why did Paddock start out with single shots, if he planned to use automatic fire?
Why would anybody switch their guns like that and try to scare off a bunch? If you're going hunting, you're not going to shoot off a single shot and like scare your prey.
Yeah,
if you're
trying to kill thousands of people, which this guy was obviously going for, maximum kills.
Yeah.
Why would you use a non-automatic weapon and then switch to an automatic weapon?
An often given answer is that Paddock was firing test shots to gauge the bullet drop. It's possible, but if Paddock planned to spray the venue with random fire, figuring out the exact drop seems to make little difference. A more disturbing answer may lie in Paddock's mind. As a mass shooter, he may have had 2 separate goals. 1, to derive dark pleasure from watching through a scope a person being hit. 2, to maximize the body count.
This guy was obviously going for, maximum kills.
Note that these 2 goals are in conflict with each other. If you're gonna spray a venue with random rounds, you won't see individual people being hit. You can compromise and satisfy these 2 goals, if you fire a few shots with a scope, before widespread panic sets in, then switch to automatic fire for the body count. And now a few random bits and pieces that turned up in the research. Here's a demonstration showing how hard it is to light liquid jet fuel using a flame.
All right, so first on the docket is jet fuel. And let's do this. There we go. It has to be atomized.
Here's an interesting, but claustrophobic visit to the interior of an airplane fuel tank.
To my right, there's another access panel. So there's 2 entries, and 2 behind me, There's another to go further back.